that life. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second attempt of I've Got Till 5 this evening. Sorry about that. We had some major audio issues. Apparently, we're having a camera issue. I give up. Technology is not my friend.
Apparently, you ain't give up because we succeeded and
Yeah.
made a second attempt.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Okay.
So, Carl, how was your week?
Started my third renovation on a floor that's made out of styrofoam.
What?
Yeah.
You didn't tell me that part.
Oh yeah, this thing is a boat. It can float. It's got so much styrofoam. Like basically, they've got the belly, they've got a styrofoam insulation, and then they have their structural beams that go across, which are not wood, they're aluminum, and they're every 4 foot across. So when the styrofoam starts to wear out, there's nothing you can do about it. It's just going to wear out. So you have to figure out ways to make it work. So
Right.
figuring out ways to make it work. Once again, not a professional, not a carpenter, not an electrician, not a plumber, but I'm doing it all. So we got a really cool guest this week. A career spanning, I don't want to age him too much. What up, Chris Hicks? Carl even feels it giving up. Damn right. I don't want to age James too much, but we'll say he's got a career spanning at least 40 years within DFW and pretty much all over the world. He is a author
Of a really good book. I've read it twice.
An accomplished musician.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. We'll get into that. But he's also known to have a really bad memory. So we'll test his memory because my history with James Beard goes back to 1989 going into 1990. So a long time.
You were just a young spring chicken.
I was just 13, 14 years old, freshman in high school. So I guess let's go ahead and get James on here, ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only James Beard.
Hey, Carl, how you
What's
doing?
What's up, boss? Man, I'm doing great. First, I want to thank you for coming on. I know you've got a busy schedule, toting Tim Storm's bags around the country. or is he toting your bags around?
I wish I was busier doing that right now. I tell you.
So, what's been going on? You sound like you got some downtime.
Oh yeah, well, I've been. I just got back from down around Temple doing a show last night, and today I kind of took it easy, to be honest with you, and been pretty busy actually, out on the road a little bit, and just kind of hanging in there. You know how it is.
Yeah. I wish I was busier than I have been, but like I remember at one point it got to the point where there was just too much going on.
It can get to that sometimes, and I've been there.
I was just like, I gotta take a break.
Yeah, I've tried to kind of pick and choose where I go nowadays, and I still go out to couple of times a month, 2-3 times a month, and that's about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's still pretty decent. I mean,
Well, it's really about all I want to do.
yeah.
I've kind of gotten to a point now to where I cherish my time at home.
I don't blame you.
Yeah.
I don't blame you. You're down in Tyler, right?
Close to it. Yeah, right outside Tyler.
All right. True or false? We're gonna do a history lesson. True or false?
Okay.
At one point in the early '90s, late '80s, early '90s, James Beard was a part of a backup band for an Elvis impersonator. True or false?
That is, well, not as regularly, but yes, that's true. We did do that. It was actually before that, probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's how I know you.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yes. Gary Stomper, my stepdad.
Oh, yes.
He played steel guitar and lead guitar on occasion.
Yeah.
But when Johnny would play, Johnny Lovett Jr., for those of you who don't know, probably one of the top Elvis impersonators in the world at that time.
Johnny was the best at one time.
Good.
Absolutely. He was in a couple of movies and he just about cloned Elvis for sure. That was, oh my goodness, that was probably 85 or so.
No.
Yeah,
because I met him when Gary and my mom were running at the Villa.
Okay.
Because he was doing the ring announcing, and then we started running at the AmVets with Stormy.
Oh, you're talking about Junior there.
Yeah, Johnny Lovett Jr. Not Johnny Lovett, but Johnny Lovett Jr.
I was thinking about his dad, Johnny.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we worked with him back. Oh, wow. That might even been before that. It might have been 82 or 3 or 4, something like that.
So this was before wrestling.
Oh yes, yeah.
When did you get into wrestling? Because like I said, I met you around 88, 89.
86. Right in there.
So you were 3 years in at the time.
Yeah, I kind of stuck my toe in the water for a little while, and then it was full blast after that. But yeah, when I first met, you're talking about Johnny Hara, the senior Johnny Hara, the one that was actually, he was an Elvis clone for sure, and very famous. But yeah, we backed him up back in oh goodness, it had to be 82, 83, 84, something like that.
So Carl was telling me that you're a studio musician. Is that still correct?
Yeah, I did a lot of studio work. Around here in Nashville, just about everywhere. The band I was in when I when I first started in wrestling was actually handled and booked by Chardon, which is Charlie Pride's company.
Okay.
And which is that was in Dallas. They were Charlie had a bank and a studio and all that stuff there in Dallas, and they booked us and handled us for a while. And
I think that company may have had. I worked at the old Metroplex Arena. Remember that the roller derby place?
Yeah.
I worked a show there that the Temptations were there.
Yeah, I worked there.
We were hired to build the stage and stuff like that. So,
yeah, actually,
security.
Yeah, Gary Hart ran some shows there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. We started it. I say we started it. We were out there and we had like Terry. We had Terry Garvin doing commentary live, open air to the crowd commentary.
Was your blood boiling then as much as it would now?
No, it didn't. It didn't bother me back then because I didn't
understand.
I didn't understand. I was just like, all right, cool. But
James, how do you feel about open mic commentary?
Me?
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm not crazy about it. I think it distracts from what's going on sometimes, and I think it kind of takes away from the fans' experience with it.
You have to know how to do it too.
Well,
you
and that's
know.
part of it too. Most of the time, when you got guys that are doing that, they're talking too much. You know.
Yeah, they're talking too much. They're saying, "Oh, the referee's back is turned, and he just hit him with a chain over a PA system."
Those,
Thanks,
those are things you just want the fans to figure out by watching. You know.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes when some groups do that, they just they get too involved in it. You know, and it becomes a distraction. The group I've been, there's a group down in Louisiana that's kind of a teaching promotion that Danny Davis has, and I go down there about once a month and work with those guys. When I first started working with them, they had a guy doing that. He was doing play-by-play, you know, live on all their events and stuff. And I finally told Dan, I said we're going to have to get rid of that. That's just not going to work. It was too distracting. Those guys were trying to learn, you know, and they're sitting there listening to a guy talk.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely. There's so many things that can take away from a match, and that's one of them. Is you know, the commentary. You know, especially when you've got an established heel commentator and an established baby, and they're just talking over each other, and everybody's like I don't even care about the match anymore. I just want you two guys to shut up.
Well, it's just another one of the things that distracts from what you're supposed to be watching in the ring, and you know that happens a lot of times with other things. You know, you got a manager out there that's being too obvious, and the fans quit watching the match for that, or he's got some valet there that's doing stupid stuff, or you know, it could be a number of things, but you got to remember that what you're there for is to watch a wrestling match, and anything that takes away from that, I think, has got to, you know, it's got to be kind of toned down or got rid of, one or the other.
Right. Now, I've worked with you pretty closely over the last, you know, almost 10 years, and I've learned a lot from you. I think one of the things that I learned the most, that makes the absolute most sense, is when I was trying to get back into wrestling as a in-ring performer, which was a horrible idea and I never should have done it. But that being said, one of the things that you told me is not the what, it's not the how, it's the where and the why. Those are the two most important things: where and why. Why do you feel that way? I mean, I get it, but you know, for the people that do listen and do watch, you know, from the highest level of respect and perspective that I can think of, outside of you know Charles Robinson or Nick Patrick, you know, I mean, you've been around the fucking world, so pardon my language, I'm rather frank, so you know that, but why do you feel that the where and the why is more important than most other aspects of wrestling?
Well, here's the thing about wrestling, and I think the most important thing about wrestling is that it's about creating an emotion, and about creating a feeling for the fans. If they don't see something that they can understand and invest their emotions into, then what's the point? And a lot of, as far as the referee goes, if that's what you're talking about, is about where the referee's involved with that.
Well, I mean,
or just the whole point of it is telling the story in the ring, and making it make sense so fans can understand it. And all of us in the ring have a duty. And I tell guys when I do clinics and things, you know, a referee is a worker, just like a wrestlers are. He's just he just has a different job. And so
a harder job.
Yeah, and it's
times 3 to 5.
Very important job if it's done correctly, you know. But you're kind of the narrator in the ring. You know, you're passing along information, because if you got a guy in a hold and the fans don't understand that it's having an effect, what a referee does is he can relay that to the fans in a way, in his body language, his facial expressions, sometimes his vocal. You know, it can be a lot of things. Sometimes it's very subtle, sometimes it's very obvious. But But all of those things are important in a match whether it's a referee or a wrestler. You've got to be telling that story, and you got to make one that makes sense. And when you get through with a match, if the fans can't understand why everything that happened in the match happened, then you're not doing your job. And that's one of the bitches I have about wrestling these days, is that a lot of matches are just a bunch of action and they don't make any sense.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into that, because I have the same feeling, but not just wrestling overall, but in a very particular field of professional wrestling, and that is tag team wrestling. But we'll get into that. I think one of the things that I appreciate and irritate the most together is I appreciate somebody that knows how to work with the ref,
Mm-hmm.
and I absolutely despise somebody who doesn't know how to work with a ref.
Well, and the problem these days is that they're few and far between. A lot of guys don't understand that you can actually help them make their matches better if they'll work with you and allow you to do that.
My favorite thing to do is to lead into a natural cutoff, into the hope spot.
Yeah, well,
They're getting heat in the corner. You pull them off. You turn them around. You turn your back to them. They move you out of the way. They go back towards the baby, and the baby catches them. There's that. I mean, it's a natural cutoff, and I've had guys do it perfectly, and I've had guys just flap out. They're just like, I don't know what to do.
The guys that really know how to work with a referee understand that if you what they do is they work around you. They don't you allow them to have these spaces and times to do what they need to do to get their heat, or to do whatever they do to get their comeback or whatever. But you allow them to have those spaces to do that. You don't just do it. If you do it, then all the heat comes onto you.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to do it in a natural way, to where it looks like everything is happening the way it's supposed to happen, and they're not looking at you, but they're not looking at the referee as he's the one that caused that to happen.
Right. Exactly.
And a lot of wrestlers don't understand that concept. They don't understand that, it's just like I tell guys sometimes, if you'll just give me time, I'm going to give you an opening to do whatever you need to do. And just a good example of that is back in the day, a lot of the old timers would do the hair pull thing. Then they'd point back there and go, hey, look, that kind of thing. Well, I got to where I thought that makes me look stupid.
Yeah.
And I'd tell guys, I said, listen, I'll give you time to pull a guy's hair or do whatever you want to do to him, but do it when I'm in a position to where it looks natural. I'll walk around you. I'll look the other way, or I'll do something that looks natural, and then you do it. And then who they're mad at is you. They're not mad at me because I was an idiot for not catching you. They're mad at you because you were sneaking around behind my back.
I'm not a big fan of the hey, look at that. I can't.
Well, I won't buy it.
I won't do it.
Yeah.
I won't do it. Like I had somebody suggest that way as a distraction. I'm like, that's stupid. Why? We're in a competitive sport. Why am I going to look up at the ceiling?
Yeah. I tell guys,
at any point in the match, why am I looking up the ceiling?
Yeah, I've had guys try stuff like that, and I'll just tell them right out front, like even loudly sometimes. I'm not stupid. I'm not going to buy that. You
can do that to the rook, but you're not doing it to me.
I don't care if the fans hear it or not. In fact, if they do hear it, that kind of tells them that I'm not buying stupid stuff.
Right. No, I agree, man. That's as a referee, and as somebody that I take the role serious, because it's an authoritative figure. Yes, you are a part of the match. You're not the highlight of the match. You're not, but the more you take into it, and the more you put into it, the more people. You're gonna look legitimate, and I think that's where some of our guys that I see floating around, because it's your match too. Yes, it is, Tony. Very good. Some of these guys just have a tendency. They look they're either overselling, they're over animated, or they've never watched an MMA fight or a boxing match at all in their life
Yeah.
to see how an official, in-ring official,
Right.
actually holds themselves.
Yeah. I work everything like a shoot.
Yeah.
And I don't oversell things. I see a lot of referees, a lot of young guys these days that oversell, like you were talking about them, a lot of hand gestures and
Oh, they pogo jump the
yeah,
every suplex. I'm like,
yeah,
no, dude, like keep your feet on the ground. If it's Bam Bam Bigelow and Big Boss Man,
yeah,
go ahead and pogo bump that. You can go
yeah,
ahead and hop up a little bit.
yeah, yeah.
That's 700 pounds of flesh hitting the ground. Okay,
Right, right.
but when you
Makes
got
sense then. Yeah,
yeah, when you got two cruiserweights doing it, you can't be popping up and down every
right,
time they take a bump because
right.
you'll
Yeah,
blow
yeah.
up because they got to get their shit in.
And I tell guys all the time, I say, if like I said, if you work with me, we're going to have a good match, and I'm going to help you have a better match,
Yeah.
and that's the key to it. I was in down around Temple last night working with Max Castellanos and Brent McKenzie, and we did. Well, I don't think there was one spot in the whole match, and it got over like crazy because we were just working it, and they were working with me, and it was fun, and we got out of the ring, and it was like, yeah, that was cool,
There's probably a couple of guys I could do that with where I don't have to ask, I don't have to know nothing.
Right.
Let's you know let's just go. Niles Plunke or Craig.
No, one of the best.
What like I can do anything with him and
Mm-hmm.
not have to be fed a whole lot of information. Believe it or not, Chandler Hopkins. I've worked a lot of matches with Chandler Hopkins, so I kind of, you know, I'm not going to say he's got five moves of doom, but I'm familiar with his set.
Well, and that's a good point too. Chandler is basically a babyface most places, and a lot of babyfaces really don't understand how to work with a referee.
Yeah.
They have no clue. They're just thinking about getting their shit in. But that's a trick in itself. And then it's so much more fun when you got all the guys working together in the ring.
Yeah.
We walk out of a ring and you've gone from this point to that point and told the story you want to tell, and the fans bought it, and you got them right where you want to get them, and there's not a better feeling in the world than that.
Yeah. No, I love when I can feed off of the crowd. Like certain shows you just know, but then there's certain shows where you're like they were into it, but they kind of weren't into it. But then I went out, because like I try to give everything that I've got during a match, and because I want that reaction, I want the fans to buy into it because I've always said this, like I've got the best seat in the house, and they're living vicariously through me, and if I can't sell it, they're not going to buy it.
Well, then that goes back to what I was talking about. You're the narrator in the match.
Yeah.
And everything that all those feelings that the wrestlers are trying to convey, they're going through you out to them, and you have to be able to show that to the fans out there. And sometimes the hardest time for us to work is when the guys have a hold. If they're working a hold, then you got to get down in there and make sure that fans understand this thing's having an effect. It's something going on here, instead of just there's no such thing as a rest hold. That's when you really go to work.
I find myself coaching guys in the ring, and I've learned that over time, but I've learned that from watching you, because it's nice. It's a nice, easy day when you can go work with somebody that you've worked with a million times. It's an easy day. Like him, APOC, and Tim Storm. Okay, we're going to work.
Yeah.
We got 10 minutes. Let's go to work. It's easy. But when you got young guys, that are still wet behind the ears. That one, they think they already know everything, and two, uh, we'll get to that in just a second, Tony. But when you have to coach guys, like I find myself all the time, I'm like, grab a hold, like,
Well,
yeah, slow down for a second.
A lot of the younger guys don't understand if they're working with a veteran referee, a guy who knows what he's doing in the ring, that they can really help them get out of a lot of trouble sometimes, and to help them get their match over a little bit better. And I'll call things in the ring.
Yeah,
If I feel something, I'll call. I called a couple of things last night. And those two guys are both experienced. But they understood that. I could see something that they maybe not were seeing or didn't fit or didn't think about. And if they'll listen to you and you give them some good ideas, then sometimes that helps make the match a little bit better.
yeah. I ran into a situation one time, and I'm sure you've run into this before when you talk about coaching the young guys. They had a spot planned. They wanted to get their spot through. They botched the spot. And instead of trying to capitalize on the storytelling of the bot spot, because when you're exhausted, you're gonna make mistakes. Yes,
Right.
like you're not all there. Why try to go back to it? And I was like, don't like that, because they were gonna go back to it, and I was like, no, don't. Like you
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
don't do it. Like sell. You're
Yeah.
tired.
Try to
Sell it.
get them to slow down, grab a hold or something. Let
Yeah.
me talk to you a minute.
Do
I'll
something,
get you
do
back on track.
anything other than try to go back to that move
Yeah.
that you just
Yeah.
screwed up, please.
Yeah.
So,
A lot of it has to do with experience. A lot of it has to do with trust. I back in the day when I'd work with young guys at the sportatorium, back in the old days, a lot of the young guys that came in there, of course, most of them were pretty well trained anyway, but they understood that they're in the ring with me and I'm going to help them get through a match. There's a lot of times I'd call a whole match, and they were good with that because they trusted that. And a lot of these guys today, if they don't know you or if they've already got all this stuff laid out, that they're going to plan to do, and they just leave you out of the whole equation, and it's kind of sad, really, that it's gotten to that point.
yeah. Well, I mean, I like it when somebody says, "Hey, what do you think about this?" Like
Mm-hmm.
Charlie Haas pulled me off to the side and said, "Hey, I want to run this through you real quick. Tell me what you think." And I'm like, "Bro, I'm like 3 years into this. Like, whatever you want to do, do it." He goes, "No, no, no. You've got a say in this because you're part of it and you're every bit as important. So your inputs." And this is coming from Charlie Haas.
Yeah.
Crazy bastard that he is, but I love working with Charlie. Oh my god,
I love Charlie too. Yeah.
oh my god,
Yeah.
such he's such a great talent. But working with him and getting to know him and knowing that 99% of that stuff that he's doing in the ring, like all the random, that's just Charlie. Like you just got to get through it, and it's hard. It's so hard. Dude. Charlie has had me rolling, like just like I can't.
Yeah, he could be pretty unpredictable sometimes.
He is.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, let's shift gears a little bit.
Okay, yeah. We have a legitimate question
A
from
legitimate
Tony
one.
Snow. From Tony Snow. There's been a
So
lot
the
of
criticism
okay. Go ahead,
behind
Sean.
the actor who played Ric Flair in the Iron Claw movie, working that scene yourself, what are your thoughts on the actor and the way he portrayed the role?
Okay, well that's Aaron Dean Eisenberger. Yeah, he was a really good guy, really easy to work with, and he tried to, we worked with him about getting some of Rick's mannerisms down and that kind of thing. I think the thing with Aaron is he wasn't really trying to be Ric Flair so much as just trying to get the essence of a guy who was kind of arrogant and that kind of thing. You're not going to find another Ric Flair out there. And I get the criticism. A lot of people thought that was off and that kind of thing, but you know, I think he did. I think he did a reasonably good job, you know, in what he was given to do. And I think the whole point of it, like I said, he was trying to come across as being this arrogant character, which Rick could be, and
No,
yeah, yeah, and
not,
you know,
not Ric Flair.
and that's a problem with a lot of people who watched the movie or anticipated the movie. You know, they were wanting every character to look and act exactly the way they remembered them, and that's not going to happen. You know,
Yeah,
it's a movie, and
I was one of those guys. I did not see Kevin Von Erich in Zac Efron. I'm sorry.
well, and that's okay. I think the point is the story was about Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
And about what happened with Kevin, and the whole point of the movie really was about how Kevin dealt with the family issues, you know, his brothers, the fact that he was kind of his older brother and not really getting the breaks that David got, and you know, David was kind of in line to be the next world champion, and then when he died, Kerry got that spot.
Yeah.
You know, so Kevin kind of got left out of the equation a little bit, and there were reasons for that. But
David was supposed to run with it, though, wasn't David?
Well, yeah, David.
Substantial run.
If David had won it, the whole wrestling world might be different right now. But the point is that this was a story about Kevin and how he dealt with all that, plus all the tragedies and his, you know, his relationship with Pam and all that, and it wasn't really meant to be a mimic. It was they weren't trying to mimic everybody. Now they wanted to get the essence of them, and you know, in the ring, Zac was very intent on trying to react the way Kevin would react in the ring, and he would listen. You know, I would tell him, I said, no, Kevin would do this way or that way, and then he'd do it. You know, which Kevin was very, very aggressive. And and at first when I was there, Zac was kind of stepped back a little bit, and then I told him, I said, no, Kevin would just run over me to try to get somebody if he had to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's just the way he was, and you know, those kinds of things. That was the kind of thing that we're trying to get across in the movie and playing those characters, not necessarily trying to mimic everything that they did or every way that they looked. I mean, none of them. I mean, Harris looked a little bit like David. He kind of had that look.
Yeah.
Obviously, Jeremy was nowhere near Kerry's size, and no, you know, I mean, who are you going to get to do that?
Yeah, right.
And you're right.
Yeah.
Zac didn't look like Kevin. In fact, he was probably built up more like Kerry than he was like Kevin.
That's exactly what I was saying.
Yeah,
the darker hair. If he had just gotten like shoulder length hair with some curl to it, that could have been Kerry's story.
Yeah, but
like,
you know,
seriously,
like I said, the whole point of the movie was not to do that. It was to try to convey that story. And if you go in there not knowing what those guys looked like, you know, like a lot of movie fans probably did. And just watch the movie as a movie, and don't worry about what the actual historical facts were or the actual historical figures looked like.
Right.
The movie's incredible. The acting was unbelievably good, and you know, so that's the way I look at it, and that's why I've taken a lot of pride in it, because it's gotten great reviews. And that's from people who weren't wrestling people. That's just movie people.
Right.
And so I, you know, getting back to what you were talking about with Aaron playing Rick, I think you have to look at it that same way. Don't try to see him as Ric Flair so much as just that character that's arrogant and you know, and that's the point of it. I mean, it would be very difficult to be Ric Flair in any movie. I mean, because he was just such an outlandish character anyway.
Right. Yeah. Now the guy that they got to play Harley Race, they hit the nail on the head with that guy. I like that promo that he cut. I like
teared up.
No, I didn't tear up. I remember that promo that Harley Race cut. It's one of, his most iconic
Right.
promos that he's ever cut, and it was on Kerry Von Erich.
Yeah, yeah, he had Harley down pretty well. I'd
Yeah.
sit right next. He sat right next to my wife at the premiere,
Mhm.
and we talked a little bit. And Aaron sat on the other side of me, so we talked a little bit. But yeah, they wanted to get the essence of those guys as much as they could. But
Yeah.
you're not going to absolutely 100% nail a wrestler like Ric Flair or even Harley for that matter. I mean, you get close to it sometimes, but
There's only one guy that can mimic Ric Flair better than Ric Flair, and that's Jay Lethal. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, but I don't think that would have gone over very well.
Yeah. I mean, look,
Yeah,
man, we got a
Jay
black
doesn't-
Ariel, so
Jay doesn't
why
have
can't we
blonde
have a
hair.
black Ric Flair?
Yeah.
I will say, after much deliberation and preparation, I was able to actually go into that movie as a movie fan rather than a wrestling fan,
And that's yeah.
look at it from the historical point of view. And anytime you see the Von Erichs in a media light on that scale, they're always glorifying the tragedy.
Yeah.
And it was nice to once see them not glorify the tragedy and more so, like you said, point out how Kevin made it through it.
Yeah,
And how he stayed strong for his family and with his family.
Absolutely.
So for me,
yeah.
it was nice to see that. And that touch at the end, where I think it was Kerry coming across in the boat to join his brothers. That I think that was the one point in the movie where it was tear jerking.
Well, I think Sean had to. I'm talking about Sean Durkin, the director and the writer of the movie. I think Sean recognized that this is it's really a downer story in a lot of ways because of all the tragedies and all the things they had to deal with and all of that and I think he wanted to find a way to kind of bring it together and give it a little bit of hope at the end. And I think he did a good job of that with that scene and also the scene at the end with Zach as Kevin sitting in the yard playing with the boys and just kind of making it look like there's a future here that's going to be a little bit better than the past was. And I think that was something that Sean felt like he had to get in there because if he hadn't, it had just been a downer, and you don't want that,
I read an article that specifically addressed the absence of Chris Von Erich, and he goes, how many suicides can you have in one movie, man?
Yeah, well, that was one of the reasons. That was one of the reasons why he left the character of Chris out of it because, he felt like it was just too much. It was getting to that point, and
not only that, but his actual presence wasn't.
No.
No.
A lot of people got up in arms about, well, why wasn't Chris there? Well, I mean, Chris
wasn't there. He wasn't in the scene.
He
was kind of there for a little bit every now and then, here and there.
Yeah,
but
he was a great kid. I loved him. He tried hard, but he had no real significance in that story. And
I mean, he ran a couple of spots in 1985, 1986 with Chris Adams or something like that. And,
well, yeah, it was actually a little bit, maybe a little later than that. He was, and he like I said, he tried hard. He was a good kid.
Yeah, he was a small kid. He was, I mean, he was small. He was runt size, but he was thick. He was as tall as a Oompa Loompa, but he was built like Sylvester Stallone.
He got himself in good shape later on.
Yeah, he was thick.
Yeah, but he was only about 5'5".
And another thing I really liked about the movie was all the historical aspects of things that happened. I read this before the movie came out, but I also saw it in the movie. It was all things that Kevin had said himself. So it wasn't like the tabloid, like the Dark Side of the Ring or that WWE documentary that came out in the early 2000s where it was all tabloid, whatever they say.
Well, that was one of the things that Sean told Kevin before he finished the movie. He said, "I'm not going to put anything in here that I haven't seen you say."
Yeah.
And of course, he had to take it upon himself, little creative license to add some this and that and the other. But Kevin was good with the movie. I mean,
What's that god awful promo?
Yeah, well, that it might have been a little bit exaggerated, but Kevin,
I got something for you.
Kevin wasn't a great talker. He wasn't a guy that you could just hand a mic to and just say, "Hey, give me 60 seconds," and he just nail it. That wasn't his thing. And David
really none of them.
Yeah, David had a knack for that. And
David could cut a promo. Kerry was just whatever.
Yeah, he could do that. He was a lot like his dad. Kerry wasn't a great interview, but he had such kind of an all shucks kind of style. He kind of got away with it. But that part of it was true. It might have been a little exaggerated, but it was true. A lot of the timelines were a little off.
Yeah, there was a lot going on in that 2 hours.
Yeah, you just couldn't get it all in there, and you didn't have enough time to do. You'd have to have an 8-part miniseries to tell all that.
That's what I was telling Sean. It would take us 5 hours to get through half of your career. If we wanted to do a timeline, it would take us 5 hours to do an abridged version of the first 10 years.
Yeah, and if you think about it, all the things that affected the Von Erichs and the world-class promotion, there wasn't just the Von Erich deaths. You got Gino and you got Bruiser. A lot of other things happened too that if you want to really get historical about it and tell the whole story, then a lot of those things had an effect on things. And you just can't get all of it in a a little over 2 hour movie.
Yeah.
It's just impossible.
Like you said, 8-part miniseries.
Yeah. That might. And it's kind of interesting because about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I got a call from the BBC, British Broadcasting Company, and I did about an hour interview with them. They're doing an 8-part series about Bruce Brody.
Oh wow!
But in that case, a documentary like that, you can get a lot of truths in. You can get all that. You got all the stuff in on that.
Yeah,
but you can't do that in a 2 hour movie. You just can't do it.
I definitely think for what the movie was and what the intended purpose was, like the story to tell, I think it definitely did its job.
Oh, I think it's incredible, and
it's a good movie.
I think if the movie had been released 2 or 3 months earlier, I think it was a good chance it would have gotten nominated for some major awards. As it is, it's actually won some awards already and been nominated for other ones in some, minor organizations and critics. And it was named from the National Film Critic Review Board named it one of the top 10 movies of the year. So it's that good. It really is.
No, it was definitely. I went into it because I'm a fan of biopic movies. I'm a big fan of biopics, and to go into this, I wouldn't say having firsthand knowledge, but growing up, I read the headlines, I saw the news reports, you can't talk to anybody that's over the age of 40 years old in Dallas about wrestling without a mention of the Von Erichs. It's like going down to Houston. Oh, I remember, the Blanchards and the Bosches and, but what?
I've done it. I was extremely disappointed in them, but I've done it.
Right. But, it's one of those things like when you see it again, when you kind of relive it, it's every bit as hard, like that happened when I was like 7, 8, 9 years old, going into my early teens. So I remember it, just like I remember the Challenger blowing up, and I remember little Jessica in the well and all that stuff. I remember these impactful things, and when you had the Von Erichs falling off the planet, one by one, that was impactful, not just for the wrestling industry, but for the Metroplex itself, because they were kind of the goal, for people. Like, I want my family to be like them.
It's hard to explain to people who didn't live through that and really experience it, just how popular and how over those boys were.
Yeah.
I mean, they were more popular probably than any of the Dallas Cowboys or any of the major athletic stars in this area. They were. In fact, I did an interview the other day with Bill Colville. He and I did a podcast with.
Oh, Bill.
Yeah, with Bradshaw and Briscoe, and Bill was telling the story about how
dropping those names.
Yeah.
I know what we'll be enjoying real soon.
He was telling a story about how they did a co-deal with the Dallas Cowboys one time, and there were so many wrestling fans that showed up and just kind of bombed the place that the Cowboys didn't want to do anymore with them.
Right.
So that's how popular those guys were. They were just rock stars.
So, at the end of the movie, right before the scene with the boat, there's I'll call it a candid scene of two people in a ring wrestling with a dim light to light the ring. Was that Ross and Marshall?
Yes, it was.
That's who I thought it was. I thought I caught Ross's face.
Yeah. They were the guys in the ring working out. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was a pretty cool touch too.
Yeah, that was kind of cool. Yeah.
All right, are we done talking about the movie now?
I mean, we can be.
Because look, man, I'm an old head. He's an old head. We got some ranting and bitching to do. So, well, I mean, that's what we do, is it not?
It's what you do.
It may have no. Well, it's not bitching and ranting if it has a purpose, right? It's a seminar. Let's do a seminar real quick.
All right,
Okay.
Me and James Beard, we're going to host a seminar on tag team wrestling. My least favorite thing in the world to be a part of, to be honest with you. And James knows why. Sean, would you like to know why I hate tag team wrestling?
Why, Carl?
Because everybody's got to get their shit in and bear the rough. Yes.
That's become a lost art, really.
Yeah, it really has.
There was a time when I actually enjoyed working in tag team situations, but in tag team wrestling, really, there's a basic formula that if you use, it works every time.
Yeah,
and a lot of guys just can't seem to have the patience to do it that way. And it really irritates me because it turns into a convoluted mess. And you're right that they make referees look stupid.
And it's the babies.
Both of yeah.
It's the babies that are doing it. I mean, the heels are supposed to get the heat.
Yeah. You're right. The baby faces are generally the culprits and that kind of deal. But it's gotten to a point where nobody really understands how to work a tag team match, and it's frustrating, and you might as well just throw them all in there and just tell them just go at it. It's kind of like those 4-ways and things, which I detest as well. But
I like fatal 4-way every now and then because I ain't got to work as hard. Triple threat, fatal 4-way.
You don't have to worry about them staying in line.
I don't have to worry about the rules. This ain't SWE. This ain't TSW. This ain't King of Sports. The rules don't matter.
But to me, those kinds of matches are always harder to work for me because I want to try to make it look I'm doing something, but not really much you can do.
The most awkward thing in the world is a quadruple down in a fatal 4-way. All 4 guys are laying in the middle of the ring. And you're like, what the fuck am I supposed to do here?
You stay out of the way, I guess.
What am I doing? Okay, guys, come on, get up. I've gotten to the point to where if it's a triple threat or a fatal 4-way or something like that, and they do a triple down or a quadruple down or a 5-man down, I tell them like, there's no count out, so get up. Like,
Maybe you should
I'm
just
not
cover
gonna
one and count them out yourself.
I watch. Yeah, I know, right? I watched one of my matches from back in the day. Travis Treborn. I agree. I guess he's agreeing with the tag team stuff. Um, I found myself watching one of my old matches. It was a triple threat, and I was doing a count, a 10 count, and a triple threat.
Did you slap yourself?
Forgot. Well, I'd also been doing this for about 4 months. It was probably like my third or fourth match. So it was bad. It was real bad. It was real bad.
At least you're wise enough now to recognize your wrongs.
Well, yeah, dude, I can see garbage from a mile away. But no, I get, and I'm sure you do too, because we've had this conversation multiple times about tag team wrestling. I mean, sometimes you just have to throw your hands up and be like, "There's nothing I can do about it." Like,
Yep.
we can say whatever we want, but you know, they see it on AEW every freaking week.
Yep.
The referees are getting utterly like, why are they even there?
Just burying them. Yeah.
Yeah, just like count your own faults. Like, um, it's frustrating because we already have the reputation of, oh, you're just a referee. Boy, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something about being just a referee. How many matches do you have to keep up with in one night? One. Shut up. I got to
Yeah.
keep up with 3, 4, sometimes 5, sometimes all of them. One time I had to keep up with 16 matches. So, um, so don't get me going on that just a referee thing. But what I can't I can't get it across to people. I'll tell them like, do me a favor, don't bury me, and I'll get buried during the match. So I ask them not to bury me in it, and do me a favor, go watch the Rock and Roll Express.
Well, one thing you can do if you get the opportunity is just don't still sell their stupid shit. You know, and you know they'll get mad at you, but that's just too bad.
Oh,
Way
I
to go.
don't. I don't care. People
Yeah.
get mad at me. Plenty of people get mad at
Yeah.
me. I don't care.
I've had a lot of times the guys they want to do that false tag, and I said I'll give you one, but I'm not
Yeah,
giving you any more than one.
yeah,
If you try to do it again, you ain't getting it. You know, it's
yeah.
just
I'm,
not
I'm
gonna
cutting
happen.
you off. I'm
You know.
definitely.
Yeah.
The other lost star is the referee calling the match in the tag team. Yeah, I've never even done that.
No, I'm sorry. You're doing what now?
He said the other lost star is the referee calling the match in a tag team match.
Oh well, I mean, I've called I've called tag team matches before, but that's when we got four guys in there who knew how to work and listen.
Right. Yeah.
You know, if you got guys that's just jumping in and out doing all kinds of stupid stuff, then not much you can do about it.
Well, and that goes back to what we originally started talking about is the what and the where, or the why and the where.
Yep.
If
Yep.
it makes sense, okay. If it's just you doing something for the sake of doing something, make it make sense. Like,
I tell guys all the time when I do clinic that two of the most important things that you can learn in working is timing and pacing. And if you've got those things down, you can get away with a lot of stuff.
mm-hmm.
But a lot of guys don't understand those concepts. You know, it's just let's do this, and this, and at any point in time, and it doesn't make any sense then.
Well, they're
And
100 miles an hour, bell to bell.
yeah,
God damn,
yeah,
slow down.
yeah. Kind of
Slow
hard,
down.
kind of hard to have timing when everything's the same time. I mean,
Yeah,
what that means is timing. It means that you understand when to do something and where to do something, and you know, and the pacing, of course, is how fast you do it. You know, when it comes about and that kind of thing. It's just so much to learning how to develop a match the way it should be developed, and then that's so much different from just performing a bunch of stunts.
yeah. And I mean, when I was growing up, tag team wrestling was, to me, I think that's where it was because I mean, you had obviously tag team wrestling is a developmental for singles eventually, unless it's guys like Robert Gibson and Ricky Morton. Like their singles careers were not all that great. Uh, Ricky's was better than Robert's. I don't know if
Yeah.
you ever saw Heel Ricky Morton.
No, I didn't.
Oh, bro, you need to go
You'll
watch
have
some
to show
You need
that
to go
one
watch
to
some
me.
NWA, man. You need
Yeah.
to go watch some 1988 NWA. Ricky Heel Ricky Morton broke more hearts than Shawn Michaels could have even thought of.
Oh, really?
Oh, bro,
That
bro,
sounds like
dude, Ricky.
that
Okay,
sounds like something to watch over a steak dinner.
so what I refer to the NWA a lot in my conversations with people because that's what I grew up watching. Like,
Yeah.
yes, I watched World Class, and yes, I watched WWF, and yes, I watched, you know, whatever I could find. But the core of my wrestling in my teenage years was NWA, and even younger than that, NWA. So I mean, I've always been an NWA guy, and I'm a Crockett guy. Believe it or not, I'm a Crockett guy. Like that's what I grew up on. I mean, I watched Midnight Express, Rock and Roll Express, the Freebirds. Well, the Freebirds were a different. They were a different animal because they were more of a six man, you know, or a trios. But what I always tell everybody is, you go watch Ricky Morton. Like, how do I get over with the crowd? Go watch Ricky Morton. If you want babyface sympathy, go watch Ricky Morton. If you want to learn how to work as an effective, really good babyface tag team, go watch the Midnight Express or go watch the Rock and Roll Express. Don't watch Midnight Express because they were good heels.
Well,
But
they were also very technically good too. I mean, they're
mhm.
probably talking about two of the best I've ever worked with. Is that much? I was fortunate. I got to work with a lot of great
was that
tag
was that
teams.
Dennis and Bobby that you worked with?
Yeah, yeah,
Dennis Condrey and
yeah,
Bobby
yeah,
Eaton?
yeah, yeah. I
Dude,
mean,
Dennis.
but it really, I mean, either way, they were still great. It
What
didn't.
about
I
Stan?
mean,
Did you
Stan,
did you get to
even
work
with
with Stan
Stan,
Lane?
yeah, with Stan Lane, they were just as good. A little bit different, but just as good.
Sweet
Uh,
Stan Lane.
yeah,
That
yeah,
that's the Midnight Express I remember. Sweet Stan Lane and Bobby Eaton. But I remember Dennis Condrey also
yeah, yeah.
because
Dennis was an incredible worker,
yeah.
unbelievable worker. But and Stan was a great tag team wrestler. Before that was with Steve Kern and Fabulous Ones, and
Hmm.
they were great too. And there's been a lot of great tag teams. It used to be a real art form, and now it's just a couple of guys they throw together most of the time. The, there's a few established tag teams out there that are traveling around that are still of that kind of quality, but they're few and far between nowadays.
Well,
Now,
I'll piggyback off what you just said. I'll give you an example of a thrown together tag team that actually kind of worked. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it was the Johnny Ace and uh, Shane. Oh, the franchise.
Shane Douglas?
Yeah, Shane Douglas. What were they? The awesome dudes or something like that?
yeah, something like yeah, it's
Yeah,
kind of a
they came out
beach,
on skateboards.
beach boys.
What?
Yeah,
They
Johnny
came out
Ace
on
on a
skateboards.
skateboard?
Yeah, they came out on skateboards,
That's
yeah.
another one I'm gonna have to look up.
and they weren't around long, but they were over, and they were literally thrown together.
They actually
Uh,
they came down and worked in Global a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. So
The Dynamic Dudes.
yeah, dynamic dudes. There you go.
there you go, there you go.
Travis.
Awesome. Thank you, Travis. So we got. Can I keep you till about 10? Because normally we run 8 to 9:30, but I have a
Whatever you
30
need.
minute
Yeah,
delay. Okay. So let's get into your history a little bit. You did some world class, not a tremendous amount of world class, but you did some world class. You were more USWA Renegades and into global at the Sportatorium, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Around that time frame. And
Yeah.
what is your favorite tag team that you got to work with?
Yeah, I worked like I said, I started about in '86, so I got the tail end of the world class and that kind of thing, and then USWA came in, and I was working over in Japan a lot during those years, so I was in and out a lot. I'd be gone sometimes 6 or 8 weeks at a time.
Oh wow!
So
But your wife loved that.
yeah, oh I loved it. No, I wasn't married. I was in good shape.
Oh okay.
Yeah, but
Um,
yeah, I went through all of that transition with that, and then back to Kevin tried to start world class again. We did that for a little while, and I didn't have any TV, so that didn't work. And then Global came in with Pedicino, and they ran out of money before too long, and Ray Pearson took it over, and it lasted till I think a '95 or something like that.
yeah.
And then there were a couple other groups that came in after that. Crockett came back in, worked a little while with him, and a group called CWA came in and did TV there for a while, and then the Sportatorium closed pretty much, and
Yeah.
that was the
Well,
end of it.
it was
Yeah,
deemed a.
but most of those years I was back and forth to Japan a lot, so I was in and out.
So on your Japan runs, were you with NWA like New Japan? Like who did you work with, and
Yeah,
where did James Beard end up getting hired by the WWF?
well, Kendo Nagasaki took me over there when I first started, and ended up working with a group called SWS, which was Tenru was the head of that
Hmm.
group, and they had an agreement with WWF.
Oh, okay.
That was probably 90, I think, 89, 90, something like that. And uh, they would bring over, they didn't start out that way. It started out with bringing over just guys that from the States and Canada and Europe and all that. It kind of fit a strong style. But they eventually made an agreement with Vince, and they started bringing over WWF wrestlers on every tour. So I was doing that, and then that caused some friction within the company, and they split. And Kendo took a group of us and started another company. So I was working with them over there at NOW, and that's when I really got into booking and that kind of thing too. So uh, I worked over there about 7 years off and on, uh, and it was my bread and butter for a long time. I worked with New Japan and All Japan, and I just about all of them at one time or the other. But I actually, as far as I know, I'm the only referee that's ever actually worked for a Japanese company. I mean, actually employed by a Japanese company, and I've done that with 3 different ones.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Travis would like to know if you have any good rib stories.
Everybody wants to know rib stories, huh?
Well, man, it's kind of part of the business. You can't talk about wrestling without talking about ribs.
Yeah, I know. Well, yeah, there's been a lot of ribs. I was not a ribber, and I didn't get ribbed a lot. Uh,
Really?
I was lucky, I mean, we kidded each other a lot
Well, of
like in
course,
the
yeah.
ring and that kind of stuff. But as far as just those some of the ribs that you hear about that were really outlandish and that kind of thing, I didn't have that happen to me. And part of that's because I just didn't do that to anybody either.
Right.
But and I don't know. Uh, one funny story, and you know Sam Houston, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, I was when I was traveling back and forth from Japan. I would a lot of times I'd come in on a Friday night. That would, for some reason our tours would end, and I'd end up flying in on a Friday, and I would leave Narita, Tokyo, and I'd get to Dallas, the DFW, at the same time I left Tokyo on the same day.
Hmm.
which is weird, but that's just what happened. So I would
At 2 on Tuesday. I got here at 2 on Tuesday.
there's about a 12-hour difference. So I would leave, and I'd actually make that 12 hours up, and I would get home the same time I left, which is cool. But
That's crazy.
Yeah. So I would, that happened to me a lot, and a lot of times it would be on a Friday, and I would go straight from DFW to the Sportatorium and get dressed, do TV, and go home, and then the next morning I'd get up and Akbar would have me booked somewhere, and I'd go down.
That's just a life, man.
Yeah,
I am from Japan. Roll straight out to the Sportatorium, do TV for a couple hours, and then Akbar says, "Hey, you're going over here tomorrow."
Yeah,
that
that happened a lot. And there were times when I'd get in a little late, delay or something like that. I'd dress on the way to the Sportatorium. Somebody picked me up, and I'd be getting ready on the way. But anyway, I would. There was one of those times when I was doing that, and did TV, and ACK had us set up for, I think, about a 4 or 5 day run down in Louisiana, and I, so I didn't get any sleep that night. I was tired, and met the guys, Zach and Killer and myself and Sam. So my thinking was, I'm just going to sit in the back seat. I'm going to take a nap on the way down there, and get some rest. And so I would lean over and start to go to sleep. And about the time I leaned over to go to sleep, Sam would shove me. Every time I'd doze off, he'd do something, wake me up. And after a while, I told him, I said, Sam, man, you're going to regret this if you keep this stuff up, and he just kept on. Well, finally, I just gave up and stayed awake, and we got down there. We're gone, like I said, 3, 4, 5 days. And knowing Sam, you know he was out partying the whole time. Well, the last night the last day, the last night we're there, he's out really having a good time, and of course we went back to the hotel and got some rest and got up and met about 7 o'clock in the morning, and Sam's still hungover, not feeling good. You know how it is when you're around somebody like that. So he gets in the car, and we're back in the car going back toward Dallas and running up 45 and 49. I mean, and he's he would go to sleep and he'd just fall over on me, and I'd shove him back over, and he'd do it again, just fall over on me like that. And I was getting tired of it, so I got 2 belts, and they had this rack thing in the back seat to hang clothes and stuff with. So I got 2 belts, put them together, and I hog-tied him. Got his hands and his feet together, hog-tied him, wrapped it up over the top of that thing. He was hanging up there like a side of beef, just hanging up just hanging there, and it's so out of it he didn't even know it.
That's not nice.
So he's riding down the highway with him hanging like that, and Killer's just laughing his ass off. He thinks it's the funniest thing he's ever seen. Well, there's a buffet place that about halfway back home, somewhere around Alexandria or one of those towns, I can't remember. Ack always liked to stop at. And it was hot. It was like 90 degrees outside. So we pulled into this place to go eat, and Killer said, "You going to cut him loose?" And I said, well, I won't say what I said, but anyway, I said, "No, I'm not letting him out." And so we just got out and rolled.
I know what he said.
Yeah. So I just rolled the window down a little bit and left him hanging there. And we went in, and we could see the car, from where we were eating. And after a while, people would walk by and they'd look, and he's just, and they were going, "What in the hell? We got a guy hanging up in the car." And after a while, you could see it start shaking a little bit. And I know it was hot, and I could see he was trying to get loose, and he couldn't get loose. And Killer said, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to go out there." So I picked up some of that Louisiana red sauce. I walked outside, opened the door, and he's hanging there. And I pulled his shirt up, and I poured about a half a bottle of that stuff in his navel. Closed the door and went back in. And Sam is doing this, and he's just begging.
That's kind of jacked up, dude. I mean,
we went in and finished our meal, went back outside, and Sam is just
somebody's belly button.
Yeah. He said, "I'll do it. Let me go." And I said, "Sam, I want to tell you something, bud. I'll let you go, but if you ever mess with me again, it's going to be twice this bad.
I'm pretty sure word traveled because I'm like hot sauce in the belly button. Like
Yep.
That is-
that's like no.
So
I'm-
that's one of the very few ribs I've ever pulled on anybody. It wasn't really a rib; it's more like self-defense.
It was fucking assault.
I'll call that payback. I'll call that payback.
That's borderline assault and kidnapping.
Yeah, well, I didn't feel bad about it at all.
And you still don't, right?
Fall asleep on James, I dare you.
Yes, Sam never messed with me again after that.
He had it come. Oh, okay. All right. Fair, I guess. So let's talk about your buddy.
Which one?
How? Well, you've got a lot of buddies. But you're relatively decent friends with JBL, correct?
Very close.
You've known him since he was old Hawk.
I literally opened the door for him at Sportatorium. He came.
But we'll call it knee high to a grasshopper in the business.
Yeah.
Yeah, Akbar and I were sitting in the booking office at Sportatorium, and we had a main event that was one of the guys wasn't going to make it, and we were readjusting TV for that night. And heard the door, somebody knock at the door in the afternoon, and I walked over there and opened the door, and there was John, and he introduced himself, and I introduced me, and he said, "I'm looking for a job." So we came in and introduced him to Ack, and we sat there and talked for a little while, and we found out he'd been trained by Brad Renkins, and you know, we could kind of tell he had a clue. He'd never had a match. He hadn't had a real match anyway.
Yeah.
And so we got to talking, and we came up with this bright idea. We'll just put him in the main event that night with Rod. It was Rod Price, who was a champion at the time. And if he does, if he does really well, I'll just let the match go, and we'll go all the way through. And if put him in there and he looks like the shits, then I'll just tell Rod to pin him, and it's over with, you know. But that's how we met, and we became really good friends after that. And I worked with him in training, and he was just one of those guys that I clicked with, and we've been that close ever since. We talk just about every week now, and we see each other when we get a chance to. But he's a real close friend.
That's pretty cool. That's
very proud of everything he's accomplished.
Yeah. He's got a similar story to Billy Gunn. Billy Gunn kind of happened into the business also. Like JBL, he was training and stuff, but Billy Gunn just kind of happened into the business and got trained.
Yeah.
But it was based off of his size and a conversation that he had, and I've heard JBL tell that story a few times. Like it was knocking on the door of opportunity of a lifetime. You know.
Yeah.
I mean,
Johnny actually told that story when he was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. Yeah, that was one of the things he told about, and he came. You know, when I got the Hall of Fame, the award at Cauliflower Alley, John came in to be my presenter for that, and that was when he was active. You know, he was still doing a lot of stuff. In fact, WWE actually paid for his way down there to do that, and then later on, a couple of years ago, he received a Hall of Fame award there, and I was his presenter for that. So, we stay in touch. We talk, like I said, just about every week, maybe just a few minutes or something, but we're very close. Yeah.
Yeah. Me and Sean, we were at the last shootout, and when he popped in, I'm just like, holy shit, it's JBL, and I just kind of turn around, like I'm not one of those. Again, I guess it goes back to the old head mentality. It's I don't bug people. You know, I know you. I've met you. I've worked with you. This type of stuff. So, I've worked with some fairly decent names over the last couple of years, and I've just never been that type to, hey man, like I embarrassed myself in front of oh shit, just incredible. He was working at MPX.
Justin, not so credible.
Yeah, just not so credible. Well, he was working at MPX, and he came in, and yeah, man, I'm really cool. Really happy to get to work with you. The last time we had Tommy Dreamer out here, I didn't get to work with that. I'm sitting there like, putting Tommy Dreamer over in front of Just Incredible, which you know it is what it is. But I just I'm just not that type to like hound people for you know uh, extra attention or something like that.
Yeah.
I try to stay in the back as much as possible because when we worked at SWE we were surrounded by guys. You
Right.
know,
And
Kevin
most of that.
Sullivan, Teddy Long, Eric Embry was floating around out there. A lot of people don't, who the hell is Eric Embry? Well, I know who Eric Embry is. James knows who Eric
Right.
Embry is. He was probably one of the best damn bookers the USWA ever had. You know, so it's just one of those things like you you, you learn when it's okay and when it's not okay.
It teaches you proper etiquette.
Well, yeah, yes and no. I mean, obviously, you don't want to be too far off in the back because everybody's like, oh, take your pictures, take your pictures. All right, cool, take your pictures. I mean, if that's what you want to do, take your pictures. Like my memories are in the ring.
Right.
My memories are in those conversations that I have with guys. My memories are, after the ass chewings that I get from Teddy Long because I didn't have a damn run sheet. Oh, oh, dude, he ripped me to shreds that day. He goes, "You got a sheet?" I'm like, "No." He goes, "Why don't you have a run sheet?" I'm like, "Nobody gave me one." He goes, "Why didn't you ask for one?" I'm like, "I don't have an answer for
Right.
this at all.
But
I'm
at
fully
the
responsible."
at the end of the day, it's take your pictures, have those conversations, make those memories. You know, we're all in the business because we love it, we
Almost 10.
enjoy
Are
it,
y'all gonna go late since you started here?
and
We're wrapping it up now.
and
Oh, wait.
we're all fans of this business. But don't be a fanboy and don't make you yourself and the person you're working for look like an ass.
Yeah, James, don't be a fanboy.
Well, I really, I've had some unique situations. When I was traveling to Japan all the time, working with all those guys and WWF guys and all those Japanese guys and everything. You're in a unique situation because you're kind of like you're all captives together. So you get to know guys a little differently that way than you do when you just meet at a show somewhere and you go your own way and that kind of thing. So I was in a good situation where I got to know a lot of the guys on a different level, I guess, than I might have otherwise, and that's made it really comfortable for me to be around a lot of those guys you're talking about. The
Yeah.
guys that were pretty big names and that kind of thing, and some of them, like Steve Austin and Booker T and name of quite a few of them. I kind of was around them when they first started, so
Right.
one like I was in awe of them or anything like that.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I met Jr. at a Texas OU game when I was doing security, and it was I didn't mark out. He asked me for a cigarette. I was like, sure. Like, I had no idea you even smoked, but okay, cool.
Yeah,
We literally sat there and had a 8-minute conversation over a cigarette, and it was
yeah,
probably one of the coolest things I've ever done because we didn't talk about wrestling, we didn't talk about football, we just talked about life. We just talked about life. I talked
yeah,
about life for 8 minutes with Jr. with Jim
yeah,
Ross,
yeah,
one of my favorite commentators ever. So,
yeah, yeah. I've spent
um,
spent quite a bit of time around Jr. He's a good guy.
all right. Travis has got another question because he's a rookie and he doesn't understand this business. Says, from your experience, how can a referee avoid taking the heat off the heels? Don't do it.
Well, it's real simple. Make sure the heat goes to the heels.
Yeah.
You know, if you allow a heel to do something right in front of you and you look like an idiot, then the heat's going to go on you. You know, what you've got to do is the same thing we were talking about earlier on, is that you have to learn to give them openings and opportunities, but you do it in a way that the fans don't blame you for it. I don't want the fans to look at me and go like, I caused that guy to do this or that, you know, and a lot of it is in your attitude and the way you work too. You know, I don't put up with a lot of crap in the ring.
Yeah.
And the fans know that, and they trust that. You know, they understand that I'm not going to allow a heel just to blatantly get away with something in front of me.
Yeah.
And that's part of how, that's really a big part of whatever success I've had has been. You know, it's that the fans trust me, but to do that, and they know that I'm going to. I mean, they understand. I mean, I let guys get away with all kinds of stuff if they just work with me.
Yeah.
But I make it look like I'm trying to keep order in the ring, and that's what you have to do. And if you got
those damn tag matches.
Yeah, you got good workers with you. They understand that, and they want that heat to go on them. They don't want you to get the heat.
Yeah.
I'm not the one selling tickets. They are.
Supposedly. Allegedly.
Well, supposedly, yeah.
Unless you're Carl.
Wait a minute. Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
fans just
I'm not a
come.
draw, dude. I'm not a draw. I don't get it. James has always told me, he's like, dude, take your flowers and, you know, run with it, enjoy it, because, you know, it equated to the more nice things people say about me now, the less bad things people believe about me later.
I don't know. Sometimes some of the things people say is a little too nice. So.
Yeah, you know, I'm a nice guy.
Mm.
Give me your top moment in professional wrestling, and then we're going to wrap this up and let you go home. What's the one thing that just everything fell into the right place, and it's like one of your top shining moments in the business?
Well, there's been several of them really, but if you're talking about actually in the business, maybe that first trip to Japan, you know, the standing there, watching that light show that they had going on before the matches, and seeing what a big deal it was to be there and being a part of that would be right up there at the top. And maybe standing in the ring and the first time I heard the music to the Freebirds or to the Von Erichs, you know, that would have to be up there. And of course, you know, receiving some of these awards that kind of come around late in my career, the last 10, 12 years. You
kind
know,
of multi-time Hall of Famer, and
a
lot of different Hall of Fames.
Yeah, especially you know the first really big one, you know, in Las Vegas with Cauliflower Alley, and I'm standing there. John was my presenter, and that whole front 2 rows was all WWE people, you know. So I'm standing there giving my acceptance speech in front of all those guys and that however many hundreds of people were out there in the audience, and that was a special moment, you know. But you know, I've had a lot of them. I've been very fortunate, and then you know, this movie, my God, you know, I did when I finished my last scene in the movie, I got out of the ring and walked around and I was going to tell Sean Durkin goodbye and thank him for the opportunity and that kind of thing. And when I got around to him, he turned around to the assistant director and told her to get on the microphone and announce that was my route. And when he did that, all the crew and everybody that was there on set gave me a big hand. You know, that was nice and
that's cool.
Good feeling. Yeah. Well, and then when I turned around to walk off, Zach came back out. Zac Efron came back out and gave me a big hug and thanked me for helping him. You know, and that was that was one of the coolest moments I've ever had. You know, it was just knowing that you contributed to something like that and that it was appreciated. You know, it and then the fact that he had enough class to do something like that. It was just that was a very special moment too. So man, Carl,
Bring a little tear to your eye.
I've had a lot of them that I'm very thankful for and blessed.
Right.
And you know, I'm right now. I'm finishing up a second book that'll be out.
Oh, nice.
And a lot of those stories will be in there about that. But there was just some magical moments. The trip to Germany was an incredible thing that's going to be in the book. It's hard to explain it all. You know, I've been so lucky and so blessed, and you know, I don't know if I'll ever have another moment like that again. But I'm happy with what I've had.
I mean, it sounds like, and from what we've seen and heard, and you know, you've built a stellar reputation. You're appreciated. Your knowledge is appreciated. So what I'd like for you to do now to close this out is just give us the most solid piece of information that was ever given to you, whether it be Ack, Fritz, you know, Danny Davis. You know, what's the one thing that you'll take to the grave, and that's a mountain you're willing to die on?
I was talking to I think it might have been John I was talking to. I know it was. We were talking about Gary Hart, and there was I don't know if you read Bart's book yet.
No.
But you know, Bart's got a book out, and it's got a chapter in there, and he tells a story in there about a time when he was supposed to win a match, and he had his shoulders down, and I counted him out, and which, you know, he was saying that you did the right thing, you know, and
yeah.
And I went back to the dressing room, and I didn't remember it exactly like this, but it could have happened that way. I don't know. He said, Gary said something like, he said, what happened out there? And I said, well, his shoulders were down, you know, and he said, well, that's not what we wanted. And I said, well, I'm going to count them. If they're down, I'm going to count them.
You know?
And we had one of those discussions, you know, and I remember Gary doing something like that, and it made it sound like he kind of challenged you, you know, he kind of like see just if you're going to stand up for yourself and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you know, it was like, you know, I didn't intend for, you know, that's not what I wanted. And I said, well, Gary, tell him to get his damn shoulders up, and I won't count him out, you know, that kind of thing. Well, Gary would come around to me and do something like that. This was early on, and he told me, he said, listen, he said, you've got a great feel for the business and a great feel in the ring. He said, don't ever let anybody change the way you work, not even me.
Yep.
And I think that's something I've always remembered and something I've always stuck to. And I've been very fortunate that the people I've worked with have allowed me to do that, you know, and so I think that and just shut up and listen, you know, which, that's one of those first things you learn. But I think that's probably the best advice I ever got, because Gary saw something in me that you know, he knew that I had a feel for things, and that what I was doing was real and looked real, and he appreciated that, and he wanted to make sure that nobody intimidated me to a point to where I changed the way I was doing things.
Right.
And you know, like I said, not even me, you know, and I always remembered that, and that's something I tried to stick to.
That's nice. It's always nice to get that feedback. Like, you know,
Yeah.
like one of my shining moments was with Nick Aldis. It was NAWA. We were at like one of the old Waxahachie high schools or something like that, and it was a double show. So we had 17 matches on the show. I worked 16 out of 17 matches. Main event being one of them was Nick Aldis and John Allen, and it was a good match. It was a good fun match. But
I would
after
think so.
that, Nick pulled me off to the side and he says, "Man, you are a breath of fresh damn air." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He said, "You have no idea how hard it is to find somebody that you cannot differentiate their role in the ring and their role outside of the ring. He's like, you're the same person throughout the entire day, and like just finding somebody that presents himself the way that you do is very hard to find. So,
Well,
that's one of the biggest compliments I've ever got, and that was from an NWA World Heavyweight Champion.
well, that's a consistency thing. If you're consistent that way. I remember Dick Murdoch told me one time. He came up to me after where I was kind of standing off by myself, and he walked up to me and he said, he said, I appreciate it. It was an event he'd been promoting himself, and he said, I appreciate you being here. And he said, I just want to tell you, he said, one of the things I really appreciate about you is that you treat the heels and the baby faces the same way.
Yep.
And I'd never really thought about it that way so much, but that's the way I worked. If a baby face did something, I'd get on his ass too. Of course, most of the time most of the time you're getting on the heel, but which is the way it works. But he said that was something that he had noticed, and he said he appreciated that. And it's that consistency thing. It's about taking your job seriously and making that who you are. And I think that's what worked for me.
In boxing, a headbutt's a headbutt, whether it's an accident or on purpose. You're still going to get penalized. But
Yep.
If the babies are breaking the rules, one, you got to get on their ass because one, they're borderline burying you,
Yeah.
and two, the rules apply to them just as much as it does
does.
the heel.
Yeah, it's all the same. Yeah.
That's one of the cool things that I did like about working with SWE and TSW and King of Sports is they did emphasize the referee's role, and that the rules did matter, that there were rules. And I had a spot at SWE where I had to disqualify Jerome because he wouldn't let up. He had Malico in the ropes and he was pounding him on the ropes. I gave him the warning and I gave him the hard 5, got to 5, pulled him off. He went back, called for the match. I mean, that's what was supposed to happen. But, they did that for a reason.
Yeah.
Well, see disqualifications very often.
Yeah, that's what you hope for as a referee, that you're working for a promotion that has rules and they're consistent and they allow you to enforce them the same way with everybody. That, of course, SWE, that was my baby, and that's I was going to have it that way. And TSW is the same thing. I'm not going to allow anybody to disrespect the referees.
Yeah, and it people are like, and I guess me going off on a tangent. I've heard people like, "Oh, y'all are just being sensitive and this and that." And I'm like, no, you don't understand, man. If I go out and make this guy look bad in order to make me look good, how good do I really look?
Yep.
Because that's what I tell everybody. I'm like, when you bury the ref, you're burying yourself.
Yep.
You're not only are you burying yourself, but you're also putting a huge spotlight on the fact that you don't know how to work. You don't know how to work with a ref.
Yeah.
Like if there's a spot for the ref to be buried, it better have a damn good reason. And it better be a spot. It can't just be, oh, I'm just going to go out here and do my stuff. Screw what James says. Because I'll tell you what that's going to get you in the locker room. Fired. You don't come back. Because that's how I look at it. You bury my ref, I'm not bringing you back because you don't know how to work.
Yeah.
I mean, it's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And if you come back and say, oh, well, I didn't mean to. Okay, well, you still don't know how to work. It doesn't matter if you meant to or not. You don't know how to work, because if you did know how to work, it wouldn't happen. It wouldn't happen at all. So, James, man, I as always, anytime I get to sit down and talk to you, it's always a learning experience. I greatly appreciate you coming on. a little later than usual. You said you got another book coming out.
Yep.
We'll talk about not really talk about it, but go check out The Third Man.
Yep.
On Amazon, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. And then when your next book comes out, I'm sure I'll try to get a copy of it. I still haven't. I've got Gary Hart's book that somebody sent me like a PDF file of, and I printed out every single page, put a whole bunch in it. I haven't turned a single page on it yet.
Have you at least read The Third Man?
I have not.
Yeah.
I know.
I'm
Honest to God, I'm not a huge reader, but I saw James at a show and I went and seeked him out.
sought.
Sought him out. Thank
Yeah,
you.
you didn't seek. You sought.
I was trying to find the word. I sought him out to ask him if he had a copy of the book on him that I could buy because I wanted to read it.
Did he?
Yes, he did.
Oh wow.
And I've read it two or three times.
I guess there's no good for. Well, you still have a copy of it then?
Yes.
I expect to see it next week. I'm gonna read your book, James. Ladies and gentlemen, James Beard, world traveled, multiple time Hall of Famer in some sense. In my opinion, a Texas legend. So, James, I appreciate you coming on. I really do. We'll have to get you on again and maybe have a structured conversation about, well, GWF. I want to talk to you about GWF and your involvement in global.
Okay. So we can do that.
Eventually, we'll talk about some USWA because one of my favorite James Beard moments. Who was it that hit you? Was it Eddie Gilbert that hit you where you did the spin bump?
Do what?
USWA. You did a spin bump for somebody. You took a hit from. Was it Eddie Gilbert?
Yeah.
You were showing me this a
It was
couple
Eddie
weeks
Gilbert.
ago.
Dude.
Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah.
James, he spin bumped.
Yes.
Spin bumped the punch.
One a few times.
Yeah.
All right, James.
Yep.
Again, man, thank you for your knowledge, thank you for your time, and thank you for just being a mentor to me and other referees in the business.
It's always a pleasure, Carl. I appreciate you, and anytime you want me back here, we'll get together and make sure it happens.
Absolutely, man. Oh, James, I can't thank you enough. And guys, if you haven't had a chance to check out The Third Man, if you want to get a strong perspective of what it's like to be a referee and being that third man, definitely go check this book out. I'm going to as soon as Sean gives me a copy of it. I've been meaning to read it for 8 years, but
Time out. I am not giving you my copy.
loaning. Did he autograph it? Is it autographed?
Yes.
I'll trade you an autographed Ric Flair action figure. I got the CA to prove it.
Instead, I can tell you about the time I did shots with Ric Flair whenever I was underage.
Oh wow, that's an off-air story. All right, well, guys, it's been a Sunday night. We appreciate you. Sorry we started out late. Again, gracious appreciation to our guest James Beard. Probably one of, if not the best referees in Texas. I need you to retire so I can take over.
Well, I've got one leg in there, That's about it.
I'm going to have to break it then. I'm going to have to take the old man out.
All right.
All right, James. We appreciate you and thank you very much, man.
Thank you, Carl. Take care, bud.